Hi everyone, I'm Matt Williams. I'm the Access Fellow of Jesus College here at the University of Oxford. I'm also a lecturer in politics. I'm here at the Oxford University Press, which is the publishing arm of the university. It produces thousands of books every year, from children's books all the way to those thick academic tomes. Its most famous issuance, however, is the Oxford English Dictionary, or OED. The dictionary is getting on for 140 years old, and it took 70 of those 140 years, so fully half of its time, just to produce the first issue. Every year, up to 5,000 new entries or sub-entries are added to the dictionary, so it's constantly growing, and it is the most authoritative work on British English usage in the world. It's a truly fascinating document. I've actually contributed to a couple of definitions myself: votarama and ambassador at large, which are quite niche, specific political sciencey terms. Anyway, the reason for bringing you here is because a lot of academic disputes hinge on how the contributors to debates utilize their words, how they use language. So the use of language is incredibly important. And of course, there is a word for this, which is called logomachy, or the battle over words, the battle over language. It's an incredibly important part of all sorts of academic disciplines. So if you take, for example, in law, there will be endless discussions over what it means for something to be just or unjust. In my own discipline, politics, we discuss what it might mean for something to be legitimate or illegitimate. These sorts of battles over language can sometimes appear to be amongst the most annoying aspects of academic pedantry, but they are incredibly important. And the implications are that when we are looking for new prospective students to the university, we want those students to have that sort of sensitivity in their use of language as well. Now, of course, you would be expected to utilize words in a way that is recognizably valid. In other words, you can't take the text of a word and completely divorce it from its subtext, from its context, from its intertextual interpretations, because then that could be an abuse of language. So for example, if I was to be discussing something to do with violence in politics, I couldn't just say that violence is always giving someone a pat on the back, because that would seem too much of a stretched interpretation, and that would seem to be too self-serving. Sorry, my part of the traffic. What I could do, however, is say that under certain conditions a pat on the back could be an act of violence, because it could be diminishing someone's autonomy. I could be breaching their physical sanctity without their permission, and doing so could cause them harm. It may not seem like the classic understanding of what we mean by violence, and certainly not some form of acts of physical violence, but it is, given my explanation, a justifiable interpretation of that word. And so what we look for in prospective students, and what I look for when I'm reading essays at Oxford, is that sort of sensitivity to language. We don't like sloppiness. When someone's using important and contestable terms, we like them to take some ownership of them. And ironically, we don't necessarily like people to rely on dictionaries all the time, because the dictionary will provide a helpful understanding of how words are generally interpreted and understood. But they are interpretations, and they are quite generalized, because they're trying to assimilate how loads of people utilize words in a specific way. Okay, so to give you an example, the word literally used to mean that something has actually happened. So it's the opposite, the antonym of figuratively, right? So if I say something like, oh, when he walked through the door, I literally died of embarrassment. Well, that would be incorrect, because I didn't die. I figuratively died. However, because people have been using literally to mean something of that ilk, to mean something that is so shocking, just to add a bit of a twist of lime to their language, the word literally now has to be recognized as having multiple meanings, and has been recognized by the dictionary here as meaning not only something that actually happens, but also something that figuratively happens. So literally is now literally kind of meaningless, because something can be or not be literal. Anyway, the point is that the dictionary tries to capture how a society at large utilizes language. But sometimes we can take language and we can utilize it for much more specific purposes than that, And we would encourage students in interviews and in essays to do precisely that. So don't be tempted to quote a dictionary when you're managing difficult concepts, difficult words. Try and take some ownership of it yourself and try and be creative. Try and think about how the word could be utilised, how it could mean something different depending on subtext, depending on, sorry, traffic, context, depending on intertextuality. So that's how your chosen word interacts with other words in other different contexts and other different texts. Okay, basically get involved with logomachy, start having some fights over language, take some control, because language is not fixed, it's constantly evolving, and it's only through using it in contested ways that we will push forward and gain a better and clearer understanding of how we're using terms and how we're understanding the universe. So please get involved, do it in interviews, do it in essays, and see what you come up with. Okay, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, best wishes to you, bye.